Okay, it is a couple minutes after 10, so I will go ahead and start this hearing. My name is David Steinberg. Good morning. I'm acting as hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is clerk of this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Microsoft Teams and will be available afterward through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet, so if you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing is being held to consider one item, that is order number 203367. My job as a hearing officer is to gather the facts of the hearing, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final determination. When the Director's determinations are made, the Department will notify you if you have provided contact information. So the hearing will proceed as follows. First, I will ask Public Works staff to speak and present the case. Then any member of the public or witness who wants to speak, and then finally the department, if the department would like to address any comments. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. We're using Microsoft Teams, and so there's a couple things to be aware of. There may be a 10 to 20 second delay between what you see on the screen and what you hear on the phone if you're dialing in. As we don't have any presentations today, it's just the agenda that's being shown, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem, but there may be a delay when you're called on to speak. If you're a member of the public or witness who wants to speak, wait for me to call for public comments, then dial 1, then 0 to put yourself in the queue to speak. You should receive an automated message that your line is unmuted when it's your turn, so you can just start speaking at that time. If there seems to be, it seems that AT&T switched their technology a little bit, so it may be that I will just have to call on you individually. If that is the case, I will recognize each person in turn, and I will unmute your phone. You should get a notification, but if not, I will just identify you by the last 4 digits of your phone number, and then you'll know that you can speak. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. If I feel that a question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item and conclude the hearing. So we'll now begin the hearing. Public Works can now make its presentation.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Leo Palacios, and I'm from Public Works Bureau of Street Use and Mapping. We called the hearing today to adopt the objective standards. This will be our 4th attempt in adopting the order. The purpose of the order is to provide a forum for stakeholders and members of the public to make comments on the objective standards. Based on the comments we received during the last hearing, Public Works revised the objective standards. At this time, Public Works requests that the director approve the objective standards as revised. Subject to listening to the comments at the hearing today, at this time, Public Works is not recommending any further revisions, except that we asked the hearing officer to correct the typographical errors that Verizon pointed out in its comments. I have sent everyone a copy of this version. Article 25 of the Public Works Code, as amended by Ordinance number 19019, requires Public Works to adopt objective standards for the use in determining whether a proposed wireless service facility to be installed on a utility pole, also known as a PG&E pole, satisfies the applicable Tier A, B, and C compatibility standards. Under Article 25, wireless carriers need permits from Public Works to install their personal wireless service facilities on utility PG&E poles. Most utility poles are wood, but PG&E also owns steel and concrete poles. Public Works no longer issues permits to install personal wireless service facilities on San Francisco Public Utilities Commissions and San Francisco Municipal SFMTA poles. SFPC and SFMTA license the use of their poles and have their own standards for the design of the 4G and 5G facilities on their poles. The proposed objective standards will enable Public Works to determine whether a proposed personal wireless service facility satisfies the applicable Tier A, B, or C compatibility design standards based on factors that are quantifiable, measurable, and verifiable. Without the objective standards, the planning department, and in some case, the Recreation and Parks Department, would have to approve design before Public Works could issue most permits. The objective standards were developed as part of a collaborative effort among city agencies, including Planning, Recreation and Park, and the Department of Technology. These agencies worked with the carrier to develop the best design possible, consistent with the requirements of state and federal law. The objective standards, for the most part, are consistent with the designs the city has approved for years. The only difference is the addition of 5G antennas, which are new to San Francisco. Design is also limited to California Public Utilities Commission's General Order, which establishes safety standards for utility poles. The city cannot require the carriers to use designs that would violate General Order 95. The objective standards will enable Public Works to meet the federal 60-day shot clock to approve or deny applications for personal wireless service facility site permits. After reviewing the public comments that have been submitted in opposition to the proposed objective standards, I wanted to briefly discuss our current procedures for issuing personal wireless service facility site permits and the city's limited authority over concerns about radio frequency emissions. Under federal law, the Federal Communication Commission's established standards for radio frequency emissions from wireless facilities. Under federal law, the city cannot deny an application for a personal wireless service facility site permits based on concerns over RF exposure if the emissions from the proposed facility will meet the FCC guidelines. Additionally, under state law, telephone companies have a right to install their equipment on poles in the public right-of-way. Finally, the FCC regulates the size of small cells and has required state and local government to adopt objective standards. For this reason, Public Works Code Article 25, Order 201970, and this proposed order, the city is exercising the authority that is left to local governments under state and federal law. We have imposed requirements and conditions to protect public safety, which is a paramount concern that we take very seriously. An applicant is required to submit a radio frequency emission report and a noise study signed by a professional registered engineer of the proposed equipment. These reports are reviewed by the Department of Public Health for compliance of the Public Health Compliance Standard and the FCC exposure level. After the facility is in operation, the applicant is required to measure RF power density levels, RF power density with the antenna operating at full power to ensure the FCC public exposure level is not exceeded in any publicly accessible area. If the general public has concerns about the antenna and potential RF source near their dwelling, Public Works can require the applicant to measure the RF power density levels in their nearby dwelling. If the applicant isn't able to accomplish this task within a reasonable time, the public can contact Public Works and will coordinate with the Department of Public Health to have a representative take measurements. In the past, many of the comments expressed concerns about the 6-foot setback. This is a minimum and is intended to protect private views. It is not about radio frequency emissions. The objective standards have been revised to require a 9-foot setback from any residence, which is generally the minimum in San Francisco. As I said earlier, regardless of the distance, Public Works has procedures in place to ensure the RF emissions meet the FCC standards. Other notable requirements in our current policy include proof of liability insurance, proof of permission from the pole owner, and a verified statement from a registered engineer of the structural integrity of the installation. All approved personal water storage facilities are reviewed by inspectors for confirmation of design. And as I stated, an RF report for public health is required post-installation, and readings of locations available upon request of the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to comments, I just have a couple of questions, if I could. We received a number of comments objecting or asking us to postpone this and not hold it. And many of the concerns were about the RF radiation and health issues. So I just want to make sure that I understand this completely. These objective standards deal with just the design of the sites themselves, and the public health aspect is not part of it because that's covered under state and federal regulations. Is that correct?
Yes, the objective standards is only for aesthetics.
Okay. And this is these standards are we're required to do it under legislation that was passed by the Board of Supervisors. I believe it said, looking at my notes, came into effect September 9th, 2019. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, in that case, if you don't have any other comments, I will open this up to comments from the public. Again, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. And my computer just went down. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, so give me just a second here to make sure we're all good. Let's see. Okay. Hold on just a second, and I'm going to go for the first person here. I apologize. Hold on a second here. Hold on a second here. I apologize. My computer just completely froze up. All right, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to take a couple minute pause here. Okay, we're back, and I apologize again. I'll turn up the speaker. Okay, sorry about that delay, technical glitches. We are ready for comments. I will recognize the first person now. You are on the line. person with phone ending 2065.
Oh, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much, and sorry for the delay.
No, wonderful. I am a resident of San Francisco, and I do appreciate the opportunity to provide some objective feedback on the document. And I do appreciate we're at our fourth iteration, but it is important to get it right and to provide and strike a balance. So again, a couple of broad statements and a couple of very specific suggestions. As I read the document, the current version still provides every opportunity for the telecom companies to install wireless facilities throughout San Francisco. I see 5 preferences under the design preference letter, and a path for a telecom company to go from preference 1 all the way to preference 5. It doesn't seem very objective, but rather subjective. And again, the document, as I read it, and it's seen its evolution, it seems to provide the wireless companies every opportunity to make their installation work for them. I have a couple of very specific examples and suggestions. One is around the aesthetics that I think are being compromised of the city, and there's a suggestion there. If we look at preferences 3, 4, and 5 of the design preference letter, it does allow a wireless facility to be installed 10 feet above the height limit for the applicable zoning district. In my mind, this 10 feet number appears to be completely arbitrary. I have no insight as to how it was derived, nor the discussion or the dialogue that happened to land on that 10-foot number. We know the height limits within San Francisco vary by neighborhood. Some are 25 feet, some are 40 feet, and some are over 80 feet. So again, my suggestion here, instead of an arbitrary and absolute number of 10 feet, it should rather be a percentage of the maximum height limit for that neighborhood. So the aesthetics of the neighborhood are not being compromised. For example, on a 25-foot pole, my suggestion here is no more than a 2.5-foot tall extension should be allowed. That is a 10% height increase. On a 40-foot pole, no more than a 4-foot tall extension should be allowed. Again, capping it at 10%. On my second point and final point, as I look at the objective standards for telecom companies, here they can essentially install one installation at every San Francisco block. It almost appears to be an unfettered path or access or mechanism to every block. I'd rather see the individual business case being provided by the cell phone provider based on coverage or lack of coverage in that specific block. For example, we know that 4G pole installations can provide over 20 blocks of coverage. According to the Advanced Network Services, a provider of cell tower services and wireless services, and we hope they're independent, one node can cover between 528 feet and over 10,560 feet. So again, one node can give you over 500 to 10,000 feet of coverage. That's multiple blocks within a residential district. So again, I would like to see language added that indicates some sort of objective standard, taking into account existing installations and their location throughout the city. That is, what is the business case need that the cell telecom provider is indicating, and there should be an element of urban planning and an element of the business case need. Those are my 2 suggestions, and thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. Okay, I will go to the next person. Hold on a second. Let's see, I believe you were, let me go, there we are. Okay, I've just unmuted you. If you have your last 4 digits of your number are 5522. As soon as you start speaking, you'll have 3 minutes.
Listen, thank you very much for the time to speak. I have to say we are having big problems with this meeting today. And so even though you've been here 4 times, you're going to have to make it a 5th, because we have the blind leading the blind. Both staff members on the phone today have materially misinformed the public with their setup comments, serving to bias subsequent public comments, purveying such obviously false propaganda. is sufficient to set aside any vote or decision made today, we strongly recommend you retreat in the face of the Ninth Circuit ruling on August 12th, 2020, a ruling which is not reflected in these guidelines that we received last night at 6:38 p.m., less than 24 hours from the proceeding. So what can we say? We have been completely stonewalled for over a year by the following city staff of San Francisco, who are still trying to purvey propaganda to the public. This is illegal, folks, and you can't keep doing it. Dr. Tomas Aragon was tasked by the San Francisco Board of Appeals over a year ago to update a 2010 memo with regards to what would be safe for radio frequency microwave radiation. He's sat on his hands for over 1 year. Nothing should be done until you hear back from Dr. Tomas Aragon, because you have a precautionary principle. You can no longer ignore that. Leo Palacios does not return any calls. Barbara Hale from the SFPUC returns no calls. We have been contacting all of the supervisors and the mayor as well. You received substantial email this morning talking to you specifically about why there's been game-changing rules in federal telecom law. Specifically, we hold that the FCC's requirement that all local aesthetic regulations be quote-unquote objective is not adequately explained and is therefore arbitrary and capricious. That was out by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So the bottom line is you don't need to pass these objective standards at all. In fact, doing so is disadvantageous because you have the Supreme Court in California in April 2019 telling you exactly what aesthetics are. It's about incommoding the public. They say, quote, travel is not the sole use of public roads. Other uses may be incommoded beyond the obstruction of travel. For example, lines or equipment might generate noise, not audible noise, just noise, cause negative health consequences, that's what we're talking about, or create safety concerns. They finished the quote saying, all these impacts could disturb public road use or disturb quiet enjoyment. So, by me, are we done?
30 seconds.
What I want to do,
30 seconds.
Okay. 30 seconds, thank you. So what I'm saying to you is what changing your data appears that the hearing will very inefficiently spend its time and energy on objective standards that do not exercise the city's full power to protect the health and safety of its people. It is completely unnecessary to put these things in the public rights of way. It's only cheap for the wireless industry to do so. So everything is over the wireless industry and against the public, and you are forcing upon them massive and necessary levels of effective creative power.
Thank you very much. That's your time. Thank you. Okay. Next person. You are on. The last 4 digits of your phone number 8843. You have 3 minutes once you start speaking. And folks, by the way, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to give your name, please do so and spell it for me, and then we'll start your time. Okay, you're on. Again, person with phone number ending 8843. If you want to speak, please go ahead. And I'll give you a few seconds to join in. Okay, does not appear that that person wants to speak. So we'll go to the next person. Phone number ending in 2208. Again, if you want to, please identify yourself and spell your name. Otherwise, just go ahead and talk.
Hi, my name is Melanie Sengupta. I'm outside counsel for Verizon Wireless. First, I want to thank the department. They put a lot of hard work into these guidelines, and it's been a really long journey, as some of the other commenters have stated. We submitted extensive written comments yesterday, so I won't go through those, but just to highlight, one of the biggest substantive changes that's occurred since the last draft is that the distance between a window and a wireless facility has been increased from 6 feet to 9 feet, which is a really meaningful difference in certain neighborhoods where the sidewalks aren't quite as wide, and it would make it technically infeasible for Verizon Wireless and likely other carriers as well to put their facilities in certain neighborhoods, which violates federal law. Other than that, we're happy to answer any questions. We hope that you do review the written comments that we submitted yesterday and take that into account as you either renotice or finalize this order. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Go to the next person, phone number ending in 8750. Again, if you want to, please identify yourself and spell your name, and otherwise you can remain anonymous, and you have 3 minutes once you start.
Hi, good morning. I'm a resident of San Francisco. I'd like to provide my comments to the proposed objective standards for personal wireless service facilities. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a reputable source since 1828, objective is defined as limited to choices of fixed alternatives and reducing subjective factors to a minimum. Let me repeat, limited to choices of fixed alternatives and reducing subjective factors to a minimum. The document as it is written allows for antennas to be installed on any and all wooden and steel and concrete utility poles throughout the city without any regard to the aesthetics of the neighborhoods we live in. For the wooden poles, there are a plethora of options: pole top without an extension, pole top with a taller replacement pole top with a pole top extension, and side mounted. These are not options that are limited. In fact, it is the complete opposite. Preferences 3, 4, and 5 should be taken out. There are maximum height limits for different neighborhoods within San Francisco, as dictated by the planning department. PG&E abides by this planning code, and PG&E poles fall within the maximum height limit for each neighborhood. Why are wireless facilities exempt from this? Preferences 3, 4, and 5 allow for a wireless facility to be 10 feet or more above the height limit for the applicable zoning district. Instead, the limit should be a percentage of the maximum height limit for that neighborhood, so the aesthetics of the neighborhood are not compromised. The recommendation would be 10% of the height limit for each neighborhood. And finally, the document as it is written does not provide any guidelines as to how far away the closest wireless facility can be. Without any clear guidelines, there could essentially be one on each block and on each wooden and steel and concrete utility pole throughout the city. Many cities have adopted requirements indicating the minimum allowable distance between small cell towers. A small cell tower can provide up to 2.5 kilometers of coverage, or 25 blocks of coverage. My recommendation is to include a minimum allowable distance between small cell towers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, and we'll go to the next person. 1 second here. All right, hold on just a second. Okay, the next person is, sorry, hold on. Okay, phone number ending in 5886. You are on.
Thank you. So I'm providing my comments on the draft. Number 1, this standard allows too much subjective choice. The 4G design ladder needs to be fixed to be objective. Language like this is subjective and almost meaningless. The line reads, quote, applicant must explain to Public Works the reasons for needing to move down each rung of the design preference ladder, end quote. That is a very easy thing to do and has no objective standard whatsoever. We need an explanation about that. We need objective language, perhaps such as, applicant must prove that there is no nearby utility pole within 900 feet where preference 1 or 2 is possible. That is objective since it lists the distance and the preference number. Number 2, add in language to prevent something from being installed on top of every wooden pole, excuse me, in the city. That should not be allowed. The way it is written, a wireless installation can be placed on every single pole in a street. That's ridiculous. We need checks and balances. We need to have objective language limiting this. Please remember there are installations already in place that are high wattage, providing coverage of over 1,000 feet north and south. This is according to the wireless providers. There is no language that takes this into account. It needs to be added. Something such as, if there is already a 4G pole on top of an installation within 5 city blocks in either direction, then the applicant cannot install on this pole except under preference 1 or 2. This still gives massive freedoms to the telco companies. It doesn't ban them from installing, but it preserves aesthetics. Number 3, the goal should be to have the applicant find a pole where option 1 or 2 is feasible. This language fails to meet that standard. This is a simple fix. Preference 1 or 2 is preferred. Any others require planning review. This gives the applicant plenty of choices while preserving the aesthetics of the city for the residents. The DPW should encourage the applicant to pick the most favored design. By giving 2 very good options, which are the first 2 options, the applicant will pick and choose wooden poles where preference 1 or 2 is possible. The language as written does not accomplish this. The applicant can easily pick the other preferences if it is easier for the applicant. That's wrong. Number 4, the objective criteria on height
30
are flawed.
seconds remaining.
Please change. The current 10 feet level is wrong. Please change it to 6 feet. Everywhere it says 10 feet should be changed to 6 feet. 10 feet soaring above a neighborhood of 40-foot residential homes is just too high and horrible. The clutter and the aesthetic damage created are too much. Thank you. Please listen to your citizens.
Thank you very much. Okay, next person, phone number ending in 7816. You have 3 minutes. And again, I will give it a few seconds here in case connecting. Okay. Does not appear that this person would like to speak, so I will go back to the queue. The next person is phone number ending in 7404. 7404. You can go ahead if you'd like.
Hello, I'm a San Francisco resident. I'm going to speak in a slightly different angle. I'm encouraging the city to deny further expansion of personal wireless antennas into our community. This is carte blanche for the telecom industry. I urge our city officials instead to place or in addition, place a moratorium on this process until the city has done its own due diligence in carefully reviewing third-party published international research concerning the health effects. I know we're not supposed to talk about that, but that's the big elephant in the room. The safety guidelines for establishing wireless radiation limits, still in use, are now 25 years old, based on flawed studies even then. The design of studies. There was a false presumption that heat is the sole risk factor to evaluate with radio frequency microwave radiation. The scope of the studies, it looked only at short-term effect. This is not how we are currently living with and amongst wireless technology and the exposures we're receiving. A look at the FCC's role in lack of oversight and regulation. The FCC has had a refusal to adopt scientific, biologically based radio frequency radiation limits that adequately protect public health and the environment. They have ignored overwhelming scientific evidence of harm to people and the environment from allowable levels of wireless radiation from devices, personal wireless antennas, and cell towers. The FCC has ignored the recommendations of the American Academy of Pediatrics, hundreds of scientists, and over 30 medical and public health organizations. Consider that children are extra vulnerable due to their developing brains and bodies. Do we care as a community? The FCC have received published research concluding that this form of radiation is an established human carcinogen. San Francisco, and there's many other effects that many of us live with daily, such as headaches or sleep issues or fatigue. Everything happens on a spectrum. San Francisco needs to take leadership on this critical issue of how 5G is being permitted to impact the health of our community as it's being rolled out. The fact that health considerations are excluded from the protest criteria in personal wireless antenna applications is a red flag, and one that the industry is trying to discredit and suppress. That is what I wanted to share, even though it's not the direct focus of the public comment you were inviting. I would hope that the city officials believe more in science than our feds do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will go to the next person. Phone number ending in 5533. If you would like to speak now, feel free to identify yourself if you want, and you have 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Mark Hansen with Crown Castle, and I actually have no comments today other than to thank the Department of Public Works for the hard work that went into creating these objective standards and for working collaboratively with all stakeholders. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And going on to the next person, phone number ending in 5938. If you would like to speak, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, thank you for taking my call. First of all, I would like to say I agree with this last caller. She was caller number 5, also caller number 1, 2, and 4. Obviously, concerned citizens, as I am in San Francisco. I realize that this is not, we're not supposed to talk about the health issues. Obviously, this is more than aesthetics, or you wouldn't have changed from the 6 feet to the 9 feet away from bedroom windows. So that shows right there that there is somewhat of a health concern because it's not saying out of dining room windows or living room windows, it's bedroom windows, right? And a concern that I have, well, quite a few, a million actually, health number 1, but with the poles, I live in a Central Sunset in a neighborhood that it's a smaller neighborhood where all the wooden poles are in the backyard, and there's, you know, it might be 9 feet from my daughter, more than 9 feet from my daughter's bedroom window, but her play structure is quite close to one of those poles. So I think that, you know, the guidelines, the way they're written, you know, it doesn't take everything into account. And, you know, like one of the speakers said about going down the list, you know, this is just up to some random person who, you know, gets access to our backyard to put up this antenna. Like, oh, are we going to put it there next to their daughter's play structure or not? They could go down the rung of this, you know, preference, and, you know, I could end up with, you know, yeah, something really bad. I believe this is putting the cart before the horse. We need to establish that all of this is safe and open for the public and public comment, and I think that it is horrible that we are putting such a thing out there during a pandemic. We need to wait for the proper notification to the city where everybody has access to this information and the ability to make a public comment. On these calls, I've been on many of them. I don't know what system you use. Zoom would be much more effective, but some of the callers that are muted, they're only muted because they didn't push 1 then 0 next. They're not, you know, the directions are not easy to follow. And I think that it's, you know, just like many other things that happen in the city during the pandemic right now, you know, jamming this down people's throats, it's only going to lead to huge
30 seconds remaining.
And I don't think the city really has the money to spend fighting these lawsuits that are going to happen. We need to wait till the pandemic is over and properly notify the city residents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, the next caller, phone number ending 7386. If you'd like to go ahead, you have 3 minutes. Again, I'll give it a few seconds to see if this person wants to speak, ending in 7386. Okay. And the next person is ending in 9625. You can go ahead if you'd like.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
This is Cammie Blackstone calling from, I'm here from AT&T, Director of External Affairs. And first of all, AT&T does want to thank the city for the efforts to develop these objective standards for the facilities to be installed on utility poles, and for the staff's willingness to consider comments from the industry. And we look forward to continue working with the city staff towards wireless regulations that comply with the law and encourage responsible deployments. We did submit comments yesterday, so I hope you have them and I hope you consider them. But the two main things that we are concerned about that could create unlawful effective prohibition are the change in the spacing requirement from 6 to 9 feet on the horizontal plane, and then also the general application of the 10-foot height minimum. So we hope that you will take a look at our comments and consider them when making your final decisions. And again, I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, we have phone number ending in 1183. If you'd like to go ahead, you are on. And phone number ending in 1183. If you'd like to comment, go ahead. Okay. All right. It's not clear the person wants to speak, so I will go to phone number ending in 3753. If you'd like to speak, you can do so now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
This is Catherine Dodd. I live at 963 Duncan Street. I submitted written comments, but I'd like to associate myself with the comments about that there's no guidance of distance between towers. I think this will ruin the streetscape and the aesthetic value of our beautiful neighborhoods. I also want to agree with the distance from a bedroom versus any other window. We know from research that these towers decrease property values. So if we have a tower every single block and it's in front of someone's 9 feet from someone's window, whether it's a bedroom or a dining room window, that property value is going to go down. This is not a time to reduce San Francisco's property value. Further, I want to agree with the fact that it's subjective moving from tier to tier, and I think that if you can't stay in preference 1 or 2, you shouldn't be able to explain your way from 3 back up to 2. And lastly, I want to point out that it's really important for the Department of Public Works to put dates on their documents. I've got 5 different versions of these documents.
beginning from last September. This is an unprofessional way to do business, and it serves to further confuse the public. So with that, I hope you will look at the comments I submitted in writing. I will be submitting public records requests for all the comments that were made and received today, as well as for what the current process is. So just have to note that public records request is coming in. I find it fascinating that the only callers that have thanked the department are the carriers, which shows you exactly how much you've been working with the carriers and not with the public. No one has called me, and I'm a known person in this issue, to say, how can we work together on this? You only work together with the carriers, and there's a problem in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next person, if you'd like to speak, number ending in 4381.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Tomi, and I'm a San Francisco resident. I live in the inner Richmond. There are many third-party scientists I've listened to recently who've researched pulse wave technology, which is what 5G is. And it says it crosses, what they are talking about is it crossing the blood-brain barrier. This is causing problems with our immune system. It affects us on a cellular level. I am concerned about this, which is why I use a cord from my speaker to my phone when playing music instead of Bluetooth. If you put 5G up, you're subjecting people to something they can never opt out of. This type of work is highly unethical, and if I were you, I would do everything in my power to find a different line of work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, next person is phone number ending in 4753. Would you like to go ahead? Oh, person did not want to speak. Okay, I am looking. I believe that is everyone who has asked to put themselves in the queue to speak. If there's someone who I missed, I don't believe I did. It looks like I got everyone. I will, let's see. It appears we have everyone. So I'm going to have Public Works speak again to anything that they would like to. If there is anyone who has not spoken who would like to speak, please go ahead and dial 1 and then 0, and we will get to you otherwise. Public Works, if you would like to speak, please go ahead.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Have you
so I thought,
sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Have you spoken already?
Yes, I have.
Okay. We only allow one per person. So again, if there's anyone else who has not spoken yet and who would like to speak, go ahead now. Otherwise, again, Public Works, if you'd like to make follow-up comments.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Have you spoken already?
Yeah, Leo, Public Works.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Leo. Yeah, you're up then.
Oh, okay. I don't believe we have any other further comments. We're just gonna read the rest of the comments that were submitted today.
Your line is now muted. Your line is now unmuted.
Hello?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're just gonna read all comments that were presented late last night and today morning. But as far as I'm aware, we have no other revisions to the proposed objective standards.
Okay, that appears to be all of the people we have who are on the line who have not spoken. So at this point, I will close this item and we'll close this hearing. Again, I appreciate people offering their comments. We'll take them all into consideration and we'll make a recommendation to the director. If you have contacted the department to inquire about the issue or offer comments, you will receive information following the decision. So I will now close this hearing. This hearing is now closed. A recording of the hearing will be available through a link on the Public Works website shortly, probably by tomorrow at the latest. Again, thank you very much for participating, and this concludes this hearing. Thank you all very much.